Yeah.
Basically what we did is we stayed in a slum outside of Nairobi, about 45 minutes away. We stayed with a family that's pretty much upper middle class for Africa, so we were in a house with running water and electricity. But all around us were people who didn't have any of those things. We met a lot of people who were living in 5x5 rooms made out of tin, and their whole family was in there. And we met a lot of amazing people with just really amazing stories. There was one grandmother in the village we stayed in who she was raising her children and her grandchildren, and then other family members were living with them too, and she just kept going every day. She was great. And it's a really beautiful place. You wouldn't think of a slum as something that's beautiful, but it's so alive. When you walk down the main road in Kware, it's just covered with people selling things they've made. These earrings, actually, I bought on that road. And we also went on safari, which was an amazing experience. We spent 4 days in the Serengeti near the Tanzanian border. We saw all of the big five animals, which is actually really rare to do. So we saw a leopard, we saw elephants, lions, buffalo, and rhino. And we saw so many other animals. And it's an amazing country just because the nature there is just so beautiful. You don't really think about it when you walk around here, like, oh, trees. Right, okay, cool, it's a tree. But then you go to the savannah and it's like, oh, there's nothing but trees. And you don't see a single person for, hours on end. And then the five of us also who are interested in doing medical work, we held 2 clinics at each of the schools that we worked in. And we gave kids deworming pills and antibiotics and other things they'd need for their whatever, like if they had colds or fevers, we tried to give them medicine as best we could. And we also traveled to a village about 3 hours away. Was it 3 hours away? 4?
4 hours.
4 hours away north. That Peter, the man we were staying with, and his wife are both from there. So they went back to visit family, and we got to meet some of their extended family. And we went on home visits with people who have been diagnosed with AIDS, and so we met them and we listened to their stories. And really all they want there is for someone to remember who they are. It's really common when you walk into a room, you shake hands with everyone in the room, no matter how many people are there. If there's 50 people in that room, you have to shake hands with every single one of them and say hello, so that they remember that you are a person and that you exist, and then everybody can sit down and have their meal. So it's a really different experience from here, and it's a beautiful place, and it really does change your life, even though you don't necessarily expect it to. You think you know what you're going to be seeing, and then you see it, and it's completely different. And I know that I'm a different person than I was before I left.
Well, the structure of the experience overall, I guess, it's very well done, because right in the middle you get safari, and it's very appropriate because you're overwhelmed about seeing all of the things that you never really expected to see. Well, or you kind of expected, but not in the amount, and not in actually even experiencing being a Mzungu, which is the Westerners or the white people who are walking around and everybody just wants to touch you and touch your hand and say, hey, I touched a Mzungu and this is my hand. So I just want to say it's very well structured because you're overwhelmed, but then you get to think, you get a second to actually experience the country and see these wonderful things that it also has to offer. And well, she already talked about all the animals that we got to see. And then come back and say, well, I have another week, let's see what we can do, what we can finally do.
I think the best part actually is when you walk down the street, all the kids that are not in school come running up to you and they shake your hand and they just like grab your arms, and you can just walk down a street and like pick a kid up and say hi and then put him down. Like we were in the airport in Dubai on the way home and I almost picked a kid up because I was so used to doing it, and then I was like, wait, no, that's someone's child. It's just like it's totally different from here.
Well, and the class coming back was actually about writing about our experiences plus research, which makes it so rich, because you always write about, you say, oh, this topic interests me, but now it's, oh, I actually lived this and I can compare it to my experience and what they're actually doing and see, well, this is not actually working, or yes, this is actually working. So that's the whole part of the course. You come back, you talk about the experience, because it's really difficult to come back and as I said before, it's hard to start telling anybody about Kenya. You're wondering, and I know this is something common between all of the people who went to Kenya, I don't know if they are actually listening to me. That was the thing that struck us more, I guess. And so we talked about the experience, we talked about our papers, and then we watched a few short videos about what's going on in several parts of Africa, and specifically in Kenya. We cannot, and this is something that I wanted to get across to you. Africa is too big and too much to say. I can only say anything about Kenya, but Africa is just too big. It has a beat of its own, it has a heart of its own, but every single part of it is so different. So, thank you very much. I think that's it.
Did you have any problem in communicating with people? I mean, how did you communicate?
Most of them speak English. Most of the adults speak English. A lot of the little kids really don't, and so you just kind of mime and hope they understand you. But I didn't really have a problem.
I mean, while we were doing the checkups,
yeah, that was hard.
In the clinics, that was really difficult because most people speak Swahili, and the mimicking a little bit was worked, and then members of the family with which we were staying helped us too. But I would definitely recommend, if you're thinking about going, learn Swahili. Not perfect, just learn a little bit.
A couple words.
And you will feel perfect. Just instead of saying hello, you will say jumbo, and then you will be happy.
It's also easier in Kware because it's closer to Nairobi, so more people speak English. In Kataka, which is kind of out in the country, it's a 40-minute walk from Mary's house. It's a little bit more difficult. Far fewer people speak English. But they understood us, I think, most of the time, and we understood them, so.
So, yes, and I can, something else that I wanted to say. I can only tell you what I felt, and I know Alex can only tell you what she felt, but we cannot tell you what you will feel. So it will completely depend on you, on who you are. Everyone is completely different. And we could show you as many pictures as we could, but that's what I targeted. That's what I wanted to see. That's what I wanted to remember. So you cannot see through my eyes. I really would like more people to experience it. You should see it with your own eyes and experience it your own. Thank you.